My boyfriend asked me to sleep on the floor, showing his selfishness. I'm questioning his love and unsure about our future. I never imagined that a single decision could unravel so much of my life. At 24, I thought I had everything figured out when I moved in with my boyfriend, David. He's 35, mature, stable, and seemed like the perfect partner when we met through mutual friends 2.5 years ago. Our relationship started off strong, with mutual respect and love. I was enchanted by his wisdom, his calm demeanor, and how he seemed to have his life together, something I aspired to achieve myself. 5 months ago, I packed my belongings and left behind my small, cozy apartment to move into his. It felt like the natural next step for us, a testament to our growing commitment. His apartment was significantly larger, situated in a quiet neighborhood with everything we needed within walking distance. It had an air of stability and permanence, a stark contrast to my transient lifestyle. At first, living together was blissful. We spent our evenings cooking together, watching our favorite shows, and planning our future. But things took a turn when David started his new job 3 months ago, a job that required him to work overnight shifts. I had no idea how much this change would impact our relationship or my own sense of comfort and well-being. David's job means he comes home anywhere between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., exhausted and in desperate need of rest. To ensure he gets the sleep he needs, he asked me to leave our bedroom when he comes in. At first, I tried to be understanding. I knew his job was demanding and that he needed his sleep. But as days turned into weeks, the sacrifice began to wear on me. Our bedroom is perfect for sleeping, dark, quiet, and cool, thanks to the blackout curtains that block out the morning sun. But when I'm banished to the living room, it's a different story. The brightness of the early morning light floods the space, making it nearly impossible to sleep. The couch, which is more of a love seat, is too small and uncomfortable, and the floor is too hard on my body. We do have an air mattress, but with our playful cat, it's just a matter of time before it gets punctured. Despite my discomfort, David insists that I'm being selfish for wanting to stay in the bedroom. He says that my presence makes the room too hot and my movements disturb his sleep. But what about my sleep? What about my comfort? It feels incredibly unfair that I'm the one making all the sacrifices while he refuses to compromise. We talked about buying a proper couch, but he doesn't want to contribute financially because, in his words, I'm the one who wants it. I'm at my wit's end. I don't know how much longer I can keep sacrificing my sleep and comfort for him. It's not just about the lack of rest. It's about feeling unheard, unappreciated, and undervalued in our own home. How do we get here? And more importantly, how do we move forward from this? The shift to night work for David started as a necessary career move to climb the ladder in his new company. But as the weeks rolled on, it became apparent that the night shifts were doing more than just disrupting his sleep. They were disrupting our entire relationship. David needs absolute darkness and silence to sleep after his shifts. His body is already out of sync with the natural rhythm of day and night, and even the slightest disturbance can make it impossible for him to rest. I understood that. I really did. But understanding didn't make it any easier when he started asking me to leave our bedroom between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. so he could sleep undisturbed. At first, I complied without question. I wanted to support him, and I thought I could manage a few hours of discomfort. But the reality of it hit hard. Our living room, in stark contrast to our perfectly dark bedroom, is flooded with light in the early morning. We don't have blackout curtains there, and the sunlight pours in relentlessly, making it almost impossible to sleep. Our couch, a small love seat, is not built for comfort, especially not for prolonged periods. It's too short to stretch out on, and there's no way to find a position that doesn't leave me aching and stiff. The floor is out of the question. It's far too hard and unforgiving on my body. We do have an air mattress, but it's more of a liability than a solution. Our cat, curious and playful as ever, has already punctured it once, and it's only a matter of time before it happens again. Every morning, I find myself wrestling with these makeshift sleeping arrangements, trying to catch a few more precious hours of sleep. But it's not just the physical discomfort. It's the growing sense of resentment and frustration. Each morning that I'm forced out of our bedroom feels like another notch on the tally of sacrifices I'm making for David's comfort, with no end in sight. The conversations about finding a compromise often end in frustration. We discussed the possibility of buying a new, more comfortable couch, but David refuses to contribute to the cost, arguing that it's my desire, not his. He points out that he already pays 70% of the rent and most of the bills, implying that I should be able to afford it on my own. This financial disparity only adds to the tension, making me feel like my concerns are secondary to his needs. I'm left in a state of constant exhaustion, physically and emotionally drained. I dread the early morning hours, knowing that they'll bring another round of discomfort and resentment. I feel trapped, stuck between my desire to support David and my need for a reasonable compromise. The arguments about our sleeping arrangements started as whispers in the early morning and quickly escalated into full-blown confrontations. David would come home exhausted and irritable, and the sight of me still in bed seemed to trigger something in him. "You're so selfish," he'd say, his voice thick with fatigue. "I just need a few hours of uninterrupted sleep, and you can't even give me that." His words cut deep, not because of their harshness, but because they felt like a dismissal of my own struggles. I tried explaining my side, how the living room was too bright, the love seat too small, and the air mattress a ticking time bomb with our cat around. But my protests seemed to fall on deaf ears. David's need for rest eclipsed everything else. "It's not fair," I'd argue back, my own frustration bubbling over. "Why do I have to sacrifice my sleep for yours? I'm exhausted too. I have to go to work in a few hours, just like you." David would sigh, rubbing his temples as if trying to ward off a headache. "You don't understand. My job is demanding, and I need proper sleep to function. You can catch up on your rest later." "I can't." These discussions often ended with one of us storming out of the room, the tension hanging heavy in the air. The emotional impact was profound. I started to dread his return from work, knowing it would lead to another argument. My resentment grew with each passing day, each morning spent contorted on the love seat or lying wide awake, bathed in the glaring morning light. It wasn't just the physical discomfort that gnawed at me. It was the feeling of being unheard and undervalued. I felt like my needs were being cast aside, my discomfort deemed irrelevant. David's unwillingness to compromise only fueled my frustration. How could he not see that this was affecting both of us? One particularly heated argument stands out in my memory. It was a Saturday morning, and I had stayed up late the night before, hoping to sleep in. David came home, his face drawn and weary, and immediately asked me to leave the bedroom. When I hesitated, he snapped, "Why are you being so difficult? Just go to the living room. It's not that big of a deal." "Not that big of a deal." I shot back, my voice rising. "It's easy for you to say that. You're not the one sleeping on a love seat or dealing with the cat poking holes in the air mattress. I'm tired too, David. I'm exhausted." "Well, maybe if you contributed more financially, you could afford a better place to sleep," he retorted, his words like a slap in the face. "I'm paying for almost everything here. The least you could do is let me sleep in peace." That comment hit me hard. It wasn't just about the money, but about what it represented. My financial contributions might have been smaller, but they were still significant to me. I felt belittled, as if my efforts and sacrifices meant nothing. The tears stung my eyes as I tried to hold back the sobs. "That's not fair, David. I moved in here to be with you, to support you, but I feel like I'm the one making all the sacrifices. You're not even willing to meet me halfway." He softened slightly at my words, but the underlying tension remained. "I'm sorry," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. "I just need sleep, okay? We'll figure something out. Maybe next month, when I have some extra money, we can look into getting a better couch." But next month felt like an eternity away, and the promise was too vague to offer any real comfort. The cycle continued, the arguments becoming more frequent and the emotional distance between us growing wider. I started to avoid him when he came home, slipping out of the bedroom before he arrived to avoid the confrontation. I'd curl up on the love seat, my body aching, and stare at the ceiling, wondering how things had gotten so bad. The resentment festered, turning into a gnawing bitterness that ate away at the love we once shared. "David, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This situation isn't working for either of us. What if we buy a new couch, something more comfortable that I can sleep on in the mornings?" He looked at me, a mixture of frustration and fatigue etched on his face. "I've already told you, I can't afford to buy a new couch right now. I'm paying for 70% of the rent, the bills, and both our car insurances. My salary only comes once a month, and it's tight." "I understand that," I replied, trying to stay calm. "But I'm struggling too. The love seat is killing my back, and the living room is so bright in the mornings. I can't keep sacrificing my sleep like this. Maybe we can split the cost of the couch? I can chip in half. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't see why I should pay for something I don't need. You're the one who wants the couch, so it makes sense for you to pay for it. His words stung, but I pushed on. We're a team, David. This is about finding a solution that works for both of us. I'm willing to contribute, but I can't afford the entire cost on my own. Can't we figure something out together? David's expression softened slightly, but the concern in his eyes didn't fade. Look, I get it. You're uncomfortable, and that's not fair to you. But I really don't have the funds for a new couch right now. Maybe next month, when I get paid again, we can look into it. Next month. The phrase felt like a lifeline and a curse all at once. It offered a glimmer of hope, but also meant another month of sleepless mornings and mounting resentment. Still, it was something. All right, I said quietly, but we need to make sure it happens. I can't keep doing this, David. He nodded, though I could see the tension in his shoulders. I know. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, we tried to make the best of the current situation. David suggested I try sleeping with earplugs and an eye mask to block out the light and noise in the living room. It helped a little, but the love seat remained a constant source of discomfort. My body ached from the cramped space, and I found myself waking up several times each morning, unable to find a comfortable position. David, for his part, tried to be more considerate. He started coming home a bit quieter, tiptoeing around the apartment to avoid waking me. But the underlying issues remained. The financial strain and our inability to find a real solution loomed over us like a dark cloud. One particularly rough morning, I found myself in tears, curled up on the love seat, my body protesting every movement. I felt trapped, caught between my need for rest and my desire to support David. The air mattress remained unusable, as our cat had already managed to puncture it once, and we couldn't risk it happening again. David walked in, seeing me in my state, and his face softened with guilt. I'm sorry, he said quietly, sitting beside me. I know this isn't easy for you. We'll get through this, okay? Just a little longer. His words were meant to comfort, but they only highlighted the growing divide between us. How much longer could we keep this up? The temporary solutions felt like a band-aid on a gaping wound, failing to address the deeper issues at play. As the days turned into weeks, the promise of next month became a distant echo, and my hope for a resolution faded. The love seat, the arguments, the sleepless mornings, it all felt like an endless cycle with no end in sight. Something had to give, but what? And how much more could our relationship endure before it broke entirely? One evening, after another heated argument with David, I poured my heart out to my best friend, Sarah, over a cup of coffee. I explained everything. The sleepless mornings, the cramped love seat, the mounting resentment. Am I being unreasonable? I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. Am I really being selfish? Sarah listened patiently, her brow furrowing in concern. Honestly, it sounds like you're both struggling, she said finally. But it doesn't seem fair for you to be the one making all the sacrifices. Relationships are about compromise, and it doesn't sound like David is willing to meet you halfway. Her words were comforting, but I needed more. That night, I posted my story on a popular relationship advice forum, detailing every aspect of our predicament. I poured out my frustrations, my feelings of being undervalued, and my physical and emotional exhaustion. I hit submit and waited, hoping for some insight or guidance. The responses came flooding in. They were varied, with opinions ranging from sympathetic to brutally honest. Some people sided with David, emphasizing the importance of his sleep and his financial contributions. Others were more critical of him, pointing out the unfairness of his expectations and his unwillingness to compromise. One comment stood out to me. You deserve to be comfortable too. It's not just about the money. It's about respect and mutual support. If he can't see that, then maybe it's time to reevaluate the relationship. Another suggested practical solutions. Why not look for a second-hand couch, something affordable that you can both chip in for? Or consider rearranging the living room to make it more sleep-friendly for you. As I read through the comments, I began to see the situation in a new light. I wasn't being selfish for wanting a comfortable place to sleep. My needs and well-being were just as important as David's. The constant discomfort and lack of proper rest were not sustainable, and something had to change. One particularly insightful comment made me realize something crucial. Communication is key. You need to sit down with him and have an honest conversation about how this is affecting you. If he truly cares about you, he'll be willing to find a solution that works for both of you. Buoyed by the support and advice from strangers, I decided to reassess my stance. I wasn't going to let this situation continue to drain me. I needed to be more assertive, to stand up for my own needs and well-being. The next day, armed with the new perspectives I had gained, I approached David. I laid out my feelings clearly and calmly, explaining how the current arrangements were affecting me physically and emotionally. I shared some of the practical suggestions from the forum, emphasizing that we needed to find a compromise that worked for both of us. At first, David was defensive, but as I persisted, his demeanor softened. He agreed to look into second-hand couches and to consider rearranging the living room to make it more sleep-friendly for me. It wasn't a complete solution, but it was a step in the right direction. The next weekend, we picked up a second-hand couch and rearranged the living room. It wasn't as comfortable as a brand-new couch, but it was a significant improvement over the love seat. The makeshift partition helped block out the light, allowing me to get a few more hours of rest each morning. As we worked together to make these changes, I felt a sense of hope returning. David's willingness to compromise and find a solution showed that he cared about my well-being. The process wasn't easy, and there were still moments of tension and frustration, but we were making progress. Over the following weeks, the atmosphere in our apartment began to improve. The arguments lessened, and the resentment started to fade. We were learning to communicate better, to listen to each other's needs, and find compromises that worked for both of us. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a realistic step towards building a stronger, more supportive relationship. We still had a long way to go, but for the first time in a while, I felt optimistic about our future together. We were no longer two people at odds, but partners working towards a common goal, creating a home where both of us could feel comfortable, respected, and valued. The biggest takeaway was the critical role of communication. Our initial conflicts had been fueled by a lack of honest, open dialogue. Once we started truly listening to each other and discussing our concerns without immediate defensiveness or dismissal, we were able to find common ground. It was a reminder that relationships are built on mutual respect and the ability to navigate challenges together. As I lay on the new couch, more comfortable than I had been in weeks, I felt a sense of contentment and hope. We had made it through one of the toughest periods in our relationship, and I knew we could face whatever came next, together.